Our next speaker is the NEO in-house consultant focused on compliance as well as English and Japanese outreach efforts. The theme of his talk is compliance and the sustainable growth of the NEO ecosystem. He graduated Harvard in 2016, so please welcome to the stage, Miles Graham.
Hey everyone, great to see you all here today. As I was getting ready for this presentation, I was hearing that there was a lot of hype, that people were really just couldn't wait for me to get up on stage and start speaking, and they were just so excited. And then I thought about it a little, and I realized it was all just because I'm the last speaker before lunch. But don't worry, I came prepared, and I'm about to do a live token airdrop. Here are my tokens, and here's the airdrop. Take this as kind of a shot in the arm while you wait for lunch. OK, here you go. And I was thinking kind of about the name. And I thought maybe I would call it the payday token. Or alternatively, I could call it the 100 grand token. All right. OK, now to business. OK, so I'm Miles Graham. Thanks. I'm Miles Graham, as I was kindly introduced. I'm a NEO Global Regulatory Affairs Officer, consultant. I work on all sorts of different stuff. I basically have two jobs at NEO. First off, to build the global NEO community. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing meetups all around the world. We want to work with folks, developers especially, to move us towards a smart economy that's more interconnected, that is more trustworthy, or as we like to say, trustless, and which is more efficient than the one we have today. And then related to that, I also work to make sure that we're keeping up with all the regulatory developments, all the compliance-related issues that you need to think about when you're overseeing a blockchain cryptocurrency-related venture or project. And we also want to make sure the community is aware of all those issues so that no one gets on the wrong side of the law, and so that people can think about all these issues before they become problems. We think that compliant growth is sustainable growth, and so we want to make sure that NEO sustains the amazing progress we've seen so far for many years to come. All right, so sorry, there's my NEO Global Vision slide. And then today I'm going to talk and kind of lay out first the importance of focusing on legal and compliance issues in the blockchain-related space, and then what makes them complicated to conceptualize and think about. And then I'll move in to announce an exciting new project that NEO is working on that will hopefully help the community and lawyers connect with each other, and also give the community kind of a jump start when new projects are thinking about incorporating, or when new projects are thinking about how they're actually going to deal with all the legal issues that arise when you're doing a token sale and you're setting up a blockchain project. So first, just zooming out, what are the key characteristics of the current cryptocurrency blockchain legal space? The biggest one, I think, is that it's no longer the Wild West, or that it's fast no longer becoming the Wild West. The sheriff is now in town, meaning that governments are very much focused on cryptocurrency and blockchain. They're devoting a lot of resources to it, and they are going to make sure that no one gets away with anything that you couldn't usually get away with. And there's a lot of examples of that. One of the best was an op-ed that the SEC and CFTC chairman co-authored in the Wall Street Journal last week. And they basically said that we see cryptocurrency and blockchain. We're watching it very closely. So they're watching everyone in this room, all the developers who are presenting. And they're not going to let anyone get away with anything. And there are a lot of other examples of that in other countries around the world. South Korea, for example, last week as well, announced that it is putting together an agency exclusively focused on cryptocurrency, blockchain-related legislation and enforcement. And all of that followed kind of on the heels this past year, you may have seen, of a number of arrests of folks who were involved in cryptocurrency blockchain here in the US, a number of warnings to investors, and kind of mirror efforts around the world. So basically, on the individual side, the consequences are really serious if anything goes wrong with your token sale or your project, and you're not going to get away with it. But then on kind of the institutional side, why is NEO, the project itself, thinking about compliance and the law so much? And that's because if a project gets a bad reputation and in its relationship, or regarding its relationship to the law, then that can really drag on community excitement, willingness of new folks to get on board. And you've seen a little bit of that with Bitcoin and its reputation for being originally kind of like a way to money launder or something like that. And now some folks, when you talk to them about Bitcoin, all they want to say is, hey, isn't that thing that you use to buy drugs? And Joseph Stiglitz last week at Davos mentioned that he thought governments would eventually regulate Bitcoin out of existence. So there's something really to be concerned about here in terms of keeping our eye on the ball with regulation so that we don't get to a point where we suddenly realize that regulation is making it difficult for NEO to grow in the way that we want it to. All right, so first, two big takeaways. There's lots of government attention on all of us here in this room, everyone involved in cryptocurrency blockchain, and there's really serious consequences for ignorance. Then I think there's one other big takeaway we have to keep in mind when we're thinking about blockchain cryptocurrency legislation, and that's that it's very diverse. Governments all around the world are reacting in really different ways to cryptocurrency and blockchain. Roland Sun actually laid out really well yesterday. He's right here in the front. Kind of the diversity of reactions to cryptocurrency and blockchain just in Asia. And he laid out some of the examples here. And it's worth going back and watching his talk if you missed it. So I won't pay too much attention to this, but just keep in mind that there's kind of three big buckets of governments right now. Some governments are limiting or rejecting cryptocurrency technology. Some are embracing and regulating it, places like Japan, the Philippines, Australia, Mexico. And then most of the world is kind of waiting and seeing what happens to cryptocurrency blockchain. I think the US is kind of like that. We don't have really clear guidelines yet on all of this stuff. Same in Europe. But I think eventually, all this will become more clear. But I don't think it'll become more clear in that everyone will end up in the same bucket in terms of regulating cryptocurrency in the same way. It's going to be difficult for a long time to wrap your mind around all the different approaches, all the different laws you need to keep in mind if you want to have a global cryptocurrency-related project. And for it to grow and be sustainable, you're going to have to be aware of all the different laws in all the jurisdictions you're operating in so that you don't get on the wrong side of the law. All right, so then what is, how can we kind of help the community deal with all the questions related to blockchain and cryptocurrency that clearly people are going to have to think about given how many folks we just saw who are doing ICOs in the next year, and given how global the NEO community is. You've heard a lot about how that's one of our strengths. We're dispersed around the world. We come together to work on incredible projects that have the potential to change the way the global economy functions. But with that comes all those challenges I just laid out in terms of dealing with this wide range of jurisdictions. So we think, so NEO has been thinking about this a lot, and we think we have part of the solution, and we're calling it the Global Blockchain Compliance Hub. The idea is that it'll be kind of like an online Wikipedia or resource for the community that folks can go to and consult to kind of get a first look at all the legal questions, legal issues they need to keep in mind in whatever jurisdiction they're setting their company up in. And then they'll also be able to be connected to lawyers who have built this database through the database. So we're hosting it on the NEO project's GitHub. So for anyone here who regularly checks the GitHub, you may have noticed in the past few days, we've merged kind of our test GBCH, which is what we're calling it in shorthand, onto the public NEO project GitHub. So you can go and check it out. I'll put up the links on, in 2 slides. And we've kind of jump-started the project by already focusing on a few key jurisdictions like Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Switzerland, Gibraltar, and a number of others that there's particular interest in by working with top lawyers around the world and blockchain enthusiasts around the world who are ready to contribute and have the legal expertise necessary, but that the community isn't yet aware of. So again, it's kind of in the NEO spirit, we want it to be a community-driven project down the road. And we want it to be something that reduces legal friction for projects so that we can maintain this amazing growth we've seen in the NEO ecosystem so far, and so that people don't have to worry about getting on the wrong side of the law, and they can be aware of all the issues that might crop up down the way and stop this incredible progress we've seen. So let me talk a little bit about the material that's covered in the database. And that was the home page there on the right side. So first off, the database covers, for each jurisdiction, so for example, you can go to the Singapore page for the database, you can go to the US page, et cetera, et cetera. It covers, first off, all the basics of registering a company in that jurisdiction. So whether you want to do a nonprofit or a for-profit, what do you need to include in your registration package? Who can be a member of the team, depending on where their nationality? Are there any restrictions related to that? What are the taxes you're going to be looking at in whatever jurisdiction you want to incorporate in? And then what are the bylaw requirements for your filing? Then we move on to all the questions related to blockchain that are kind of have generated more buzz in recent weeks and months. So first off are the big ones surrounding token sales. Are ICOs legal in the jurisdiction you're looking at? And if they are legal, what laws kind of restrict ICOs, if any? And then also, are the tokens you're going to be issuing, whatever they're called, utility token or currency, whatever, are they considered securities in that jurisdiction? So we have to comply with securities laws. Then we're going to try and look at data privacy on public blockchains. So how do data privacy laws apply to data that you're hosting on the public blockchain? Liability. So is the user of a smart contract going to be liable for the smart contract falling apart if something goes wrong? Will their funds or whatever they're putting on the blockchain be liable? Or will the author of the smart contract need to come up with whatever was lost? Or will it actually be the platform itself that's liable, the equivalent of the NEO or Ethereum? Then we're going to look at dispute resolution. How do you resolve disputes on blockchains? How do you resolve disputes over the execution of a smart contract? And then we're also going to look at the definition of smart contracts in terms of the degree to which they're actually legally binding. And then finally, touching on an issue that was covered a little bit in the panel yesterday, we'll try and cover the immutability of smart contracts and how that applies to their execution down the line. There's the trickiness of it being kind of awkward to edit a smart contract and then see how that impacts with past transactions on the blockchain and how that would impact future transactions. So two caveats. First off, folks using the database shouldn't take it as legal advice. It's a primer. You should still seek an actual lawyer to talk to once you kind of go through this. It's a way so that you can, first off, kind of start to conceptualize all the questions you need to keep in mind when you're setting up a new blockchain cryptocurrency project. And it's also a way to put you in touch with lawyers. So I'll touch on that in the next slide. And then the second caveat is that a lot of these questions have yet to be answered. So, and that's what kind of makes this initiative so important and so exciting. Because this space is changing so quickly and is going to impact a vast number of projects on the NEO blockchain whenever new legislation comes out related to blockchain or cryptocurrency, we're going to try and keep it constantly updated. And you'll see when you browse through the database that some areas we say, this isn't clear yet. These are what some people are saying. We include suggested readings in the database. But you really need to think about this or keep this in mind or keep checking up on it down the line. So then touching on how we're actually going to pull this off and how we're going to make it a community project going forward. Those are live links, so you can look. The second to last link is the live site. We're going to try and get a bit of a more elegant URL, but that's where we are for now. And then you can see the live GitHub repository, and that's where lawyers will go to contribute to to our repository, to our database. And then once they contribute, they will then have the option of being listed on the bottom of whatever page. So if you're a Singapore lawyer, you could get in touch with us. You could make a pull request on the GitHub repository. We look at it. We say, oh, it checks out. This guy seems great, or this woman seems great. And then we will include you at the bottom of the page as a kind of approved or approved contributor, someone that projects in Singapore could look to get in touch with if they actually want to move towards seeking counsel and incorporating. So I think that's, oh, and then the only other thing is you don't necessarily need to be a lawyer to contribute. If you're really interested in blockchain and you're thinking about all the legal questions related to it, if that fascinates you. I'm not a lawyer, but this is all really fascinating to me. You can still contribute to the GitHub because a lot of the legislation related to blockchain and cryptocurrency is so new that really people are still just getting a grasp of it in the legal world as well. So we think, and with this sort of database, it's worthwhile to have anyone interested in that sort of stuff contributing. So check out the live website. Check out the GitHub repository. If you're a developer, make sure you're thinking about all these issues as you bring your project to the point where you're incorporating or doing an ICO or token sale. If you've already done those things, still think about these things. And if you're a lawyer or someone interested in legal questions related to blockchain and cryptocurrency, please consider contributing to the repository and getting in touch with me. There's my email. And I really look forward to seeing what everyone here accomplishes with their projects and look forward to seeing what we can do with the GBCH. So thanks so much, everyone.